Is God in time? I've intentionally removed any idea of time. That's when it gets into the philosophical view of the eternal now view of God. If God, as C.S. Lewis talked about, being outside of time, like if a line was written on the page, then God would be a part of the page that the line was written upon, is kind of the analogy he uses. So both present reality. So what we would think of as we are in the present, and so I am aware of Space Barbecue's question because Space Barbecue just asked the question in the present, right? I'm aware of it now in the present because it's happening in the present and I know it. I'm not determining Space Barbecue's question. I'm no way determining it, but I know it based upon the present. And so the eternal presence of God, that God knows all things because he's eternally now in the present. So he doesn't know all things because he just determined all things. He knows all things because he's in the eternal now, in the eternal present, which is beyond our full comprehension because time and space is relative, because time and space is based upon matter. Now, this is when your brain starts blowing up, and I don't get this. I'm not saying this is beyond my full comprehension, but it's fun to talk about because that's what theology geeking out is all about. But I remember in my science class in college when they were talking about the relativity of time, because you think of time, man, that's objective. Time is time. It's just 1 second is 1 second. 2 seconds is 2 seconds. An hour is an hour. But then they talk about the proof of the relativity of time and space, and they would show certain experiments where you would have an atomic clock, very accurate clock, that you would place upon a jet airplane that could travel the speed of sound, very fast jet airplane, and you'd have another clock that was stationary, and you would start them at the exact same millisecond or whatever it is, and the jet airplane that flew around the Earth at the speed of sound would come back, and you would compare the clocks, and the clock that was in motion on the plane would be less time has passed on it than in the stationary clock, and thus proving that matter in motion travels at a less amount of time than the one in less motion, which is beyond our full comprehension. And so the theory is, and the proof from the theory is that if something could travel faster than even the speed of light, which of course particles take time to travel. We can measure light because there's enough particles for us to measure. There's certain particles that even faster than the speed of light that very difficult to measure because light is at least big enough for us to see it and to measure it. But there are other particles that can actually travel faster than the speed of light, and therefore if you find something that travels faster, then the theory is that time would go slower on those particles. So if you could put a clock on something that travels the speed of light or even faster, then the theory is eventually you could get it to travel so fast that it would be what? Timeless, that it would be without time because time is attached to matter, to particles that can be measured. Well, God created all matter, which ages. It grows with time. Time is based upon material world. And therefore, if you're outside of time, you have no particles, matter, then you are above and beyond time. And therefore, you are timeless. And therefore, the concept and idea of the eternal now view of God is that God is in the eternal now, that all things are present to God. And therefore, God is all-knowing because he's all-present, not because he's all-determinative. He's all omnideterminative, and he determines all things. And that is beyond our full comprehension. That's our brain just, we can't understand the infinite nature of the infinite world of the universe and the galaxies that go on for eternity and ever and time forever. And I mean, our finite brains just, we can't get it. And so I'm not pretending to give an answer to the philosophical quandaries. And I don't think the Bible is giving answers to all the philosophical quandaries. It's telling us to trust the revelation. And the Revelation seems to indicate that God has created a world from nothing. He has created a world with matter, with time. And we are within that finite reality in that world. But God supersedes that in some mysterious way. What I don't want to do is bring my finite understanding of God and his infinite ways and to say, well, because my finite brain can't comprehend a way in which God would create creatures that he himself doesn't control, therefore he must not have been able to create creatures he himself doesn't control. I said, no, I think God's probably more creative than my finite imaginations. And that's beyond my full comprehension. And that's where I land with these kinds of things, is that I don't know the answer to the question. I don't know how God creates free creatures. I believe that he does based upon revelation. That's where we have to land on that.